First order of business is roll call.
Mark Neutkens.
Here.
Eric Curtin. Here. Olin Gambrell.
Here.
Jim Miller.
Here.
Tom Heaney.
Here. Next order of business, adoption of minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes?
Yes. Yes.
Motion to adopt said minutes from November the 27th.
Second? Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, there's just one typo. My last name is misspelled in the minutes. So E instead of an I. Not a big deal, but just wanted to note it.
Would you consider changing it, just to make it easy?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make the note. With that exception, are the minutes appropriate? I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Minutes are accepted. Mr. Kane, could you let Celeste know Mr. Neutkens' last name has an I in
E.
it? E.
Secretary.
E. It says it's correct then. Mine has an E.
Mine has an I.
Oh, down low. I'm looking up the top. Okay. We'll make sure that's corrected. Next order of business is a review of the continuations. Mr. Kane, we don't need to read them all in just the name of the applicant.
It would read the name of the applicant and the address of the property, so.
Mr. Curtin, if you could do that, that'd be great.
The appeal of Tingles LLC, Rhode Island Nurseries, Chilla Napolitano, by David Marlin.
Yes, I'd ask that matter be continued to the meeting on January 29th for control purposes only. And at that point, we've determined if another meeting is necessary to establish.
Okay.
Thank you.
Petition of MRI 5 Ludlow Partnership by attorney Jeremiah Lynch.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant has asked that be continued to January the 29th. They have an amended petition that's to be advertised for that meeting.
Okay.
So that's for both.
So the 29th?
Yes, sir.
There's two of those, Jim.
Yep. Next order of business is our first case. Mr. Curtin, can you read that?
Petition of Child and Family Services of Newport by their attorney David Martlin for a special use permit from sections 1212 to allow two 95-square-foot building-mounted signs where 60 square feet is allowed. Said real estate is located at 31 John Clark Road and further identified as Lot 671 and Tax Assessor's Plat 115.
Yes, for the record, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, David Martlin on behalf of Child and Family Services. As the board is aware, this is a petition for a special use permit related to signage. If the limitations in this district are signs are to exceed 60 square feet, you're allowed to exceed that amount by special use permit. And what we're requesting are for the two signs on either side of the building, on the east and west facades, to be 95 square feet. This evening I have with me Marty Sinnott, who is the CEO of Child and Family Services, as well as Betsy Aiken, who's the Vice President of Development, and Jim Hool, who is a real estate expert and prepared to testify with respect to the elements of the special use permit. If I could, I'm not sure how much testimony the board wants with respect to this petition. I feel it's a fairly straightforward petition. I know the board is familiar with the property. What's being proposed for these signs are these, basically these cutout letters, and they're not illuminated. There's no internal illumination with respect to these to the signage. There may be some gooseneck lighting that might be installed to provide some illumination, but it won't be internally illuminated, only externally illuminated. So it will be, very benign. It's just that, as you can see from the cutout, pretty benign sign with the white lettering, and with the tagline, "Caring for our community since 1866." There's multiple tenants located, community-type tenants in the building, and Child and Family serves sort of a vast array of the community, from preschool through senior citizens with a number of services. And so they believe that it's important to really reflect that in the signage, and in order to do that on this building, you need this slight increase in the amount of signage to provide for that. Would the board like to hear from Mr. Hool or have any questions relative to that?
Sure.
Okay. If I could call Mr. Hool?
Well, my question to you,
Certainly.
the sign where it says child and family, is it child and family services, or it's going to be child and family?
Yeah, so
Caring for our community since 1860?
that's correct. To sort of cut down a little bit on the verbiage there, we've limited it to child and family. That's sort of kind of like
So one sign is on the side of Johnny Cake and the other's on the Valley Road?
that is correct.
So driving by, if I didn't, and I know I'm familiar with Child and Family Services, driving by, if I didn't know Child and Family, caring for our community since 1866, that's sufficient.
Yes, and if I could call Mr. Sennett up to,
I'm just looking down the road, if
explain
you're
that.
going to be coming back here in a month or 2 months for something to add to this, or is this it?
This would be it.
Okay.
You can have Mr. Sennett.
Sure.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony tonight would be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
Marty Sennett, my home address is 16 Cranston Avenue in Newport. Work is 31 John Clark Road.
Thank you. Tell us about your signs.
My son,
No, your signs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Love to hear about your son, but we'll do that later.
Well, I know your son. I'm totally sorry. I was thinking about him, so sorry about that. In essence, I think this is a little bit overdue on our part. When the building was constructed, I think we should have accounted for signage. It is, I think really consistent with the size of the building. So what we really want to do is celebrate our history, celebrate the role that we play in the community in a way that is understated and is not, as David said, not lit in some kind of big flashing way, but kind of speaks to the image that we, I think, have successfully conveyed to the community. But it does give us a little bit of brand recognition,
Right.
which I think is important to what we do and the impact that we have on the community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And if I could call Mr. Hool?
Mr. Hool, raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
James Houle, Houle, 198 Union Street, Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
Mr. Hool, you've testified before us on numerous occasions, so the board's going to accept you as an expert
Thank you.
witness.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if Jim, you're familiar with the property and the application before the board this evening,
I am. Go ahead.
and you're familiar with the provisions of the zoning ordinance and the requirements to obtain a special use permit?
Yes.
And you undertook a review of the zoning ordinance and applied that to the petition before the board this evening?
Yes.
And you were able to review the requirements for a special use permit and develop some opinions relative to that, is that correct?
Yes.
And if you could just sort of explain to the board, those opinions and whether or not you believe that this meets the requirements for obtaining a special use permit.
I did do a review of the area, the subject property. We're all fairly familiar with Child and Family Service Building. on 31 John Clark Road. It actually extends from John Clark Road over to Valley Road, or essentially overlooks Valley Road, overlooking the pond. And the idea, as Mr. Marlin stated, is that they will put the sign, Child and Family Caring for Our Community since 1866, on the side of the building that faces John Clark and the side of the building that faces the pond across Valley Road. So I looked at it, the size of the sign is 95 square feet. They are, the size of the signs are 95 square feet each, where 60 is allowed. It requires a special use permit, but I also really took a lot of time to look at section Article 12, which has a lot of information, a lot of criterion regarding signs. So not only did I look at it in terms of the 5 criteria that are used in terms of the special use permit, but I looked at it in terms of Article 12 as well. The purpose, in Article 12, the purpose of the subchapter has several items promoting public health, safety, welfare, all to do with signage of the town's streets, roads, and highways, to reduce distractions and obstructions from signs, to prevent signs from adversely affecting traffic safety, to alleviate hazards caused by signs projecting over or encroaching on the public ways, to discourage excessive visual competition in signage, and to ensure that signs aid orientation and adequately identify uses and activities of the public, and preserve and enhance the town character by requiring that new signs are compatible with the surroundings, appropriate to the activities, goods, or service they promote, and appropriately sized in their context. When I look at those, I felt very strongly that the plan conforms to all of those. The signs are in character with the area. They're not going to be distracting to any traffic. They will not encroach into any other space. They're appropriate for their purpose, for the setting, for the context, the size of the building. The signs will be appropriately positioned, and they're seen as proportional to their planned setting. And then I went on and I looked, and Section 1212 requires that if signs are not non-conforming or exempt, they have to comply with several other items: the quality, character, and appropriateness of proposed sign, the aesthetic impact of the sign on the public right-of-way, the total amount of sign area on the premises, the existence of non-conforming signs on the premises, and the site design and the layout of the property. Again, I felt that these signs conformed with all of that. They're of high quality, they show the proper character, they're appropriate, they're aesthetically correct. They are the only signs on the building, so there's no temporary signs. They're proportional to the scale of the building. There are no non-conforming signs on the property. The proposed signs are fully in conformance with the layout of the property. So I felt that all of the items that are in Chapter 12, Article 12, are actually addressed correctly with the sign. But then I also looked at it in terms of the usual criteria of special use permit from 902. It will not result in a significant diminution of property values of the surrounding area. It certainly will not. It would have no impact at all. There are commercial uses on 3 different sides that are very similar, that the pond is on the other side of Valley Road, so there's not going to be any impact in that direction. I just didn't see any impact at all in terms of value. It will not create a nuisance. It's been stated these are not lighted signs. They're not special events. They clearly identify what they are intended to identify of the business on site. There are no streamers, banners, there's no flashing lights, there's no moving parts. So they have no characteristics of what are the prohibited signs of section 1208. So I don't see any nuisance that could be created by the sign. Compatible with the comp plan, it conforms to the zoning code except for the size. The larger size does require only a special use permit because it's in harmony with the zoning code, and the zoning code is really the arm of the comprehensive plan. I felt that it was in conformance with the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Holt, do you think it's reasonable when you look at other industrial parks that this is a common practice?
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's no question. I didn't actually, to be frank, I didn't take the time to judge the proportionality.
No,
of the
that wasn't
signs.
my question. It was just, you think it's in keeping with an industrial park?
Oh,
Not-
it is very much so, yes.
Yeah, I don't think, I have no doubt that it meets the 5 criteria. You don't need to go through each one of the 5.
Thank you.
My only question was, you think it's in keeping with an industrial park and naming a building?
It is, it is,
Okay.
it is. I mean, there are several uses in the industrial park that are, you know, office uses, and they have very similar, maybe not as large, but they have very similar types of signage.
Thank you. I think that's, unless anyone else on the committee has.
Yeah, the only point of clarification is you mentioned that one of the criteria was the total amount of signage. There is existing signage there now, is that correct?
Well, there's a small sign and there's a banner sign hanging on the building. I didn't notice that there was any more.
Yeah, there is that one temporary banner sign that would be
Okay, so
removed.
that's coming down.
That's correct.
That's where the sign
That's where the
will
sign's
be.
gonna go.
Yes,
Oh, that
that's
makes
where the
sense.
I wanted to
sign will
make that clearly understood because there are signs there that are existing that will be replaced by what you're recommending.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Is the temporary banner that's currently on the side of the west side of the building, the maximum size allowed under is it the 60 square feet, or is that smaller?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry. I don't know the answer to that. We had our 150th anniversary a couple years ago, so we just kind of did that as a temporary
Yeah.
kind of, but I don't know that we actually went to what the size was.
Okay. No, because
We are moving
the only-
at the same time.
the only point I was going to raise is, I think that that's a very noticeable sign. I think everybody that drives along that road, and somebody may feel differently, but this is just my perspective, that's a highly legible, well-placed sign. And so I'm just wondering, how did you arrive at the 95 square feet, the need to apply for the larger sign? If you could just justify that a little bit, I'd feel more comfortable supporting it.
So, and really the intent on that banner was really
If-
just
if-
strictly our 150th.
If I could just interrupt you for a moment, if you could just please come over to the microphone so that
Sure, sorry.
it's
So,
captured. Thank you.
that was done with kind of abrupt planning, so I don't know that we went through the effort that we're going through now in terms of getting kind of professional consultation on what a permanent sign should look like. That was a pretty much, shoot, this anniversary snuck up on us, we got to celebrate it. So we put it up there without the kind of planning that is going into this. And again, we think the aluminum letters are, you'll certainly be able to see them, but it's a softer, more subtle type of signage than what's up there now, which includes bright colors and, you know, the 150-year symbol.
Jack, did they have to pull a permit for that temporary sign?
I believe that they applied for and have a permit for a temporary sign.
If you don't have a remembrance of the size?
I'm sorry, I don't.
It appears to be larger than 60, but not as large as 95. But I can't, I didn't measure it, so I don't know.
If I recall correctly, we did.
You know, I went down and shot photographs of it today, and the reality is that I think that it really is very close to the same size. I do think this sign is a little bit larger, but the shape, exactly, the change is really in the shape. Because this is really a perfect
Yeah,
rectangle.
it's a big rectangle, yeah.
Exactly, and this will be a longer script type sign. So I think that the overall size is not going to have a significant difference to the eye, but it's just the shape is going to be different.
I think this would be actually less. I think the banner, because of its shape and its material, pops. So
Well, I
this
think
will
that's
fit.
one of the reasons why in 12, they don't like banners.
Right.
Because it tends to be more of a
Right.
fashion than a permanent sign.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Do you have any other comments, Mr. Martland?
No, I don't. Given that, that this is a special use permit, I think in this context, the application meets the standards for a special use permit. The sign is really sort of a modest sign, with the white lettering. It's designed to be somewhat muted and understated. And so I really don't have anything further. I think we've met the burdens for a special use permit.
Okay. Let's see if anyone else has anything. Is anyone in the audience like to speak for or against the petition? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the
Motion
special use
made by
permit.
Mr. Curtin, second.
I second.
Second by Mr. Heaney. Discussion?
I'm going to support it. I think that the work that was done to articulate the background for the rationale for having the sign this size on the size of the building, the fact that the building is set back from both of these roads and allows the signs to be viewed equally well from each side, but not demonstrative on either side. So I think even though we're allowing a larger sign, I think it's going to conform nicely to the overall area that the building and sign will be located in.
Any other comments?
I'll make the argument that the specific nature of the lettering could be used to warrant the excessive, in this case, gross area. Though it's not backfilled, the way the area is measured is that it's an artifact that makes us have to, I'm sorry, that puts it in the category of needing a special use permit. So in this instance, I don't think we would be setting a precedent so that every single other commercial property on that road would have the same argument for getting a bigger sign. So I feel comfortable supporting this.
Okay. I too am going to support the petition. I went through special use permit, the section. I didn't see anything in there that would prevent us from passing it. So with that said, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Curtin, next petition.
I just want to go back before we go.
Okay, we have to take a quick bathroom break. So we'll recess for 5 minutes. Actually, a break from Martin. He's gonna-
So you count
Draw
that
a
the
geometric shape around it.
He's really,
And that's how you get your hair.
So this is really, it doesn't have to be.
If you had it on like a plain background,
Yeah, or something.
like if they painted like a white background on the whole thing, did it like a rectangle instead of following the shape of the letters, then you would count the background.
Marty looks out to be.
Because that they do, it's pretty clear, the way it's described in the ordinance.
I just wanted to, they didn't have that subject.
But that's branding. What's the shortest thing to remember?